The new generation Hyundai Palisade takes a very different tack to its predecessors because it's now a hybrid only offering, still with the choice of 7 or 8 seats, but at launch there's just going to be one grade available and it's going to cost you a lot of money. I'm going to tell you all about it in this review, so stick around, make sure you've subscribed and you'll be able to keep up to date with all of my reviews. Thanks for doing so if you have already, and let's check it out, shall we? New Palisade time. At launch, there's just going to be one version of the Hyundai Palisade available, the Calligraphy all-wheel drive, and like I said, there'll be the choice of 7 or 8 seats, but the price is going to be quite high, people. You can expect around $90,000 before on-road costs for this single high-spec version. There might be other versions added later on, but the brand has really thinned out the ranks to leave a little bit of space for the Hyundai Santa Fe, which now is almost up to $80,000 in its lineup. So look, there's a couple of different choices there obviously, but let's talk about this Palisade and what you're getting as standard, because it builds on the existing range topping model with plenty of standard spec and tech. You're going to get things like LED lighting all around the car. There's 21-inch alloy wheels, an Australian specific suspension and steering tune. Plus, there is keyless entry with the digital key from Hyundai, so you can just use your phone and then walk up to it and it'll unlock for you using Bluetooth. Plus, there's plenty of other great stuff. Things like those lovely looking roof rails. There's a dual pane sunroof as well, and inside a heap of new standard kit, including more front seat adjustment, heating for the window seats in the front, middle and third rows, while the front and second rows also get ventilation with this lovely interior trim. There's 4 different trim choices for the interior to choose from and 8 colors on the outside. You still get 2 big 12.3-inch screens with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, a new Bose 14-speaker sound system, and much, much more. So I reckon that even though the range will be quite limited in terms of just one variant available, it's going to have pretty much everything that you could want, I think. But what do you think? Would you choose it? Would you choose one of these alternatives? If 90 grand is the asking price for this, well, you've got plenty of amazing choices that you could otherwise make. So if you're looking for a family-friendly 3-row SUV and, well, you are going to go adventuring, you might want to have a look at the Ford Everest, because while it is a much more hardcore vehicle based on the Ranger Ute, it is also a very well polished and likable and livable SUV with 3 rows of seats, a full-size spare, a choice of a couple of different diesel engines, a 4-cylinder or a V6 in the high-grade versions, and the high-spec version of the Everest is actually really well packaged and has plenty of kit for, well, a little bit less money than what this is probably going to cost. Another rough and tumble 4x4 option that you might want to consider is the Toyota Prado. Now, it does have a diesel engine only. It's got the choice of up to 7 seats, not 8, and it is a very impressive thing if you are looking for something that can do a bit of everything pretty well. It's not the most amazing thing in terms of luxury, but it does have heaps of different variants available, and the pricing is pretty compelling as well. And finally, if you are thinking about something maybe a bit more road-focused and polished, the Mazda CX-90 could be a good choice. There are plenty of different versions available, starting at a lower price than this is going to, and, well, it tops out at a higher price as well, because there are heaps of different models in that 7-seat model lineup. And I do think that the CX-90 is compelling in its own way. There's 6-cylinder petrol or diesel engines, and if you are looking for that kind of powertrain with mild hybrid tech, it could be a very good choice because they're still pretty efficient, plenty powerful too. So what would you do? Would you choose any of those, or would you go for this or something else? Have your say in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Bigger than before? You bet. This new Palisade is more than 5 meters long. It obviously has a whole new design language to it, which you might love or might not. You tell me in the comments. But I do think that it pulls off its size very well. I love this green exterior color, by the way. Not so hot on the very shiny bits around the outside, but hey, you might love them. I'll put all the dimensions on your screen now so you can see for yourself just how large this new version of the Palisade is, because it is pretty big. It also has pretty decent towing capacity, 750 kilos for an unbraked trailer and 2,000 kilos braked towing capacity. Now let's have a look at this back end design. It is, like I said, a little bit shiny with that mirrored pillar finish right at the back there, but I do reckon that it looks pretty tidy. Yeah, almost a little bit Bentley-ish, wouldn't you think? Right, now let's have a look at the boot, because there's a bit to consider here. You do have an electric tailgate, of course, and we're gonna see it in all seats up configuration first. So here we go, people. That is a good amount of space. Behind the third row, you're talking more than 300 litres in the current measurement standard, and that is a very, very good amount of space. It's got the things you would expect, some shopping bag hooks. This tan finish might not be to all tastes. There's also some security hooks down the bottom, and you've also got on this side a vehicle to load capability. So you do actually have a charger back there, like you would in a plug-in hybrid or an EV, and that is pretty handy. 12 volt as well, another shopping bag hook. And if you want to, you can adjust these seats electronically because they don't have manual pull straps anymore. So you can do all of them at once if you want, or you can just do the third row. So we'll just pop the third row down. You can see for yourself. It's not too slow. It's not the fastest when it comes to folding those seats down, but certainly gonna be pretty quick, I would say, for, well, the quick load up if you need to. I'll put the figure for the cargo capacity as it stands right now on your screen. So I reckon that that is going to be pretty practical. Look, this is the 7-seat version, so it does only have 2 rear middle row seats, but 3 seats in the very back. And I want to call out, before I get into the very back to show you the space, you do have a middle seat belt coming out of the ceiling there. So that's one thing to consider. And as you can see on the backs of those seats, top tether, top tether, top tether, top tether. And if you choose the 8-seat version, you also get another top tether there, and there's ISOFIX points for all the ones that have top tethers. So you can fit, in theory, 5 child seats in here if you choose the 8-seater. And another great thing for family customers in Australia, you're getting a full-size alloy spare wheel underneath the body, but look at that, it does impact the ground clearance. As you can see, I'll put that number on your screen. And if you're wondering what's underneath this little area here, you've got your jack and some other stuff, but extra storage space too. Yeah, pretty practical, isn't it? And I reckon pretty family friendly. Now let's take a look at the interior, hey? Rightio, let's have a look at the interior of the updated Palisade, and I do think that this has been quite the glow up. Even though it does have some sort of carryover elements, still 2 12.3-inch screens, still a bank of actual buttons, thankfully, for some of it anyway, and a digital climate control panel down there. But I do think that this feels more opulent and more upmarket than before. The Napa leather interior trim obviously plays that role, and I do like the calligraphy embossed in the headrest there as well. And it's also not just that, but this mix of textures on the doors really does look quite nice. The ambient light as well. And then you've got this section on the dash that almost looks like a breaking wave to me, with a wood panel section there, which isn't wood, but looks good. And I do think that this is living up to the price in terms of the perceived quality and the perceived interior design elements that you would think that you need to have for a $90,000-ish SUV. Well, it's sort of nailing that. I also really like the speaker covers up there on the pillars. And yes, you do get a dark headliner. I don't love that personally. No overhead grab handle, which is maybe a bit of a shame. But when it comes to your vanity mirrors, of course, you've got illuminated ones. They're auto illuminate, and these also slide. So you do get a little bit of extra sun protection, auto dimming rear vision mirror, and you've got an SOS call button up there, and you've got the twin pane sunroof control. So you can open and close those 2 different panes independently if you wish. Now let's have a look at this screen a little bit more generally. So yes, it is similar to other Hyundais. You will have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. There's sat-nav as well. There's a hybrid screen, so you can jump in and have a look at what's been happening with your powertrain. Don't look at that, that doesn't matter. That's not realistic because this car's just been idling for a long time here today. And look, you've also got the other controls you would expect, connected services, so you can check what the weather's going to do. And it is a very warm day today. So yes, there you go. So that screen, I think you'll get used to that pretty quickly if you are used to other Hyundai screens. And there are some settings in there that you might want to set up as a favorite, including your safety systems if you want to adjust those. But this is one of the things, you can adjust your favorite button there to be whichever one of these you everything. So you can passenger talk, so that actually means you can throw your voice to the back via the speakers if you wish, and you've also got a number of other things there. So I typically set it up to be driver assist because I do find that Hyundai's driver assist stuff can be a little bit frustrating at times. But look, I haven't been able to test that today, so maybe in real world driving that might be a consideration. But let's have a look at some of the other stuff here. You get the 12.3-inch driver info screen here as well, and it does have a number of different views and controls on there that you can go through if you wish. And look, I do think that if you have sat in any other Hyundai or even a Kia, you will come to terms with all this pretty easily, I would say. And then there's the gear selector. So it's one of the ones that comes off the steering column. If you're a big kneed person, or you have long legs, just be careful when you get in and out. Forwards for drive, backwards for reverse, the park button's on the end, and your engine starter button is there too. You've got conventional controls for your blinkers, so right side for blinkers and lights, left side for wipers, front and rear. Yes, you do get a rear wiper. Your steering wheel controls, they're nothing unusual. And you also get the 4-dot Hyundai badge, which is basically H in Morse code. That there is your driver monitoring camera system. Again, haven't been able to really tell what it's like on this drive, but yeah. Then there's the head-up display there. As you can see, that is standard as well. Over here, let's have a look at some of these controls. If you do toggle onto the drive modes, you can see that it will change the display up there. You can configure an independent drive mode called My Drive if you wish, and set up how you want it to be. And then you've got terrain modes as well. So yes, there is snow, mud, and sand, and that is for when you go and find some rough stuff. But none of that today. There's an auto hold button there too. You've got conventional buttons and dials for some of the media controls, including your volume and mute button and tuning over there, and some other obvious controls there too. And then you've got your climate control settings down here. So you do have dials for climate control and a little touch screen there, which, I mean, that is just a fingerprint magnet. I don't love that that is still a screen, but that's just how it is. You've got heating and ventilation, seat controls there as well, and a recirc button. And then there's this section in front here, which does have some storage and a 12-volt, and yep, plenty of storage in fact. And then you've got this section here, which is a very good storage area as well, with a wireless phone charger. That right there is a fingerprint reader. So if you do have the digital key set up, you can actually just use your fingerprint to start the car if you wish. You've got a couple of USB-C ports with 100 watt. That is very, very quick. And you've got a UV cleaning system as well if you want to, for your phone or anything else that's dirty. You've got cup holders there too, a center console bin, which isn't huge, but big enough, I would suggest. And you can even do the seat controls from here if you wish. So I think that the interior experience here is pretty damn good, I have to say. Also like that you do get memory settings for your seats and a massage quick button there if you want to use it. Interesting looking door handle designs, and thankfully pretty conventional and not shiny plastic window switches, which is good. Big bottle holders down there too, which is great. Now, all that seems pretty promising, doesn't it? Let's jump into the second row and see what the space is like. The space, it's great. I've got plenty of room back here behind my own driving position. Look, I can stretch my legs out and still have leg room to play with. When it comes to headroom, yep, good as well. Grab handles in the back. You've got lights too. There are vents overhead and a climate control system here, so you can adjust your seat ventilation. You can adjust the temperature and the fan and where it's all going. That is very good and very family friendly. Now, where are your vents? Well, they're obviously overhead, but you don't get any down below, so that might be a consideration. But you do get a pull-out drawer there. Unfortunately, unlike some other cars, it's not refrigerated or heated, so that might be a consideration. But you do get the USB-C ports that your kiddos might love. You've got map pockets on the seat backs. You've got some bottle holsters up here and a little device holster as well. The ambient lights run there as well. And yes, you are getting sun blinds for the back. Hoik handles to help yourself get in, or your kiddos. And it is quite practical in terms of those considerations. Now, these seats do include ISOFIX points and top tethers for the second row. If you choose the version with 8 seats, this turns into a bench rather than the premium relaxation seats or whatever they're called for this one. These ones do get nice little drop down adjustable armrests, which is great, and they're very comfy as well. And you can also recline them too. So let me show you that. I can just get the old seat lie down happening. And that means that, well, if you are on a long road trip and you don't have stuff in the back or people in the back, you might be able to get very, very comfy. But speaking of the back, let's have a look at how we adjust these seats to get in there. And in fact, it's actually this one here, which is easier to do. It does have a little quick release thing. So you can do this. Watch this. I mean, it takes a little while. It's not as good as a manual one where you can just flick and roll the seat forward, in my opinion. So if you are going to use those third row seats all the time, that might be worth keeping in mind. But I'm going to go around to that door and see whether it's easy for me to get in. I think it's going to be. Right, so I think this is going to be a cinch. And I mean, apart from me getting a bit of a morning calf workout, that is pretty good. Now I'm going to jump in behind where my seat was before, and obviously you're going to have to move that seat forward a little bit, sacrifice a little bit of leg room for the second row occupants if you want a 6-footer to be comfortable in the third row. That's no biggie, but there are some great inclusions back here again. So some good lighting and some great ventilation, but look how close my face is to the ceiling. So big units, beware, it is not going to be the most accommodating third row experience, but there is plenty of great features in the back. Let's have a look. You've got some bottle holders. You can also use the buttons over here for your rear seat, window seat heating, and you can slide those seats forward. Yeah, so you can adjust things a little bit more, and that will allow you a little bit more space in theory. So look, if I slide my one back, yes, I will have to still get the person in front of me to move even further forward, but that's livable, that's doable, I would say. And you've got bottle holders on this side as well. And yes, 3 seats here. So the middle seat belt comes down from there. I don't think that's necessarily going to be a very comfy seat for anyone who isn't half the size of a normal person, but look, the potential is there. You've got potentially 8 seats, and all-wheel drive and a hybrid powertrain. Pretty clever, eh? Under the bonnet of this new generation Palisade is a new engine, a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine, but it also has 2 electric motors. So those electric motors will allow you to have a fully electric drive experience in some situations, and they're still sending all the power through a 6-speed auto transmission with all-wheel drive as standard. Now, this car also has a thing called stay mode, which will use the battery pack to power all the electronics and the climate control without the engine idling. Look, hybrid tech is, well, one of Hyundai's strong suits. So let's go and see what it's like to drive. Okay, this is not a full-scale road test by my usual standards because I'm driving this as a pre-production car here at Hart in northern Sydney on a closed circuit, just trying to do a mix of driving that, well, hopefully will be a little bit representative of what you will do on the daily anyway. So this surface, if you aren't aware, is basically designed to replicate real roads across Australia. So there are some rough bits, some uncomfortable bits, some bumpy bits and lumpy bits, and also a couple of twists and turns. And I've driven it a little bit already, and I'm pretty impressed with the way that it handles all of that stuff. The lumps and bumps in particular over that little ripple section there, perfectly comfortable. And also that's because this car does have an Australian specific damper tune for the suspension. It's also got Australian specific steering tuning as well. So it feels like it's made for our market. It doesn't feel unnatural in any way, as far as I've seen so far in terms of the drive experience. I mean, the steering is maybe a little bit slow feeling, but it is a big vehicle and it does still feel smaller than it is, if that makes sense. And it is a very enjoyable drive experience from the dynamics and the handling perspective. It does pretty well when it comes to corners and steering and ride and comfort and refinement mostly, I would say, because this 2.5 litre engine, it's a new hybrid powertrain. It's a little bit more vocal than I was expecting, the petrol engine. And then you've also got the electrification as part of it, of course. Now, Hyundai says that this has been designed to basically be available to drive as an electric vehicle more often, and there is a pretty noticeable difference when you are driving an EV because you can't hear the engine, and it is pretty smooth and pretty quiet and pretty refined. And then you've got a paddle shifter setup if you do want to shift gears yourself. Being an electrified hybrid vehicle, it does have a regen braking system, so that will aim to try and send some potentially lost energy back to your battery pack and give you a bit more EV capability. And there's also a couple of different braking modes in terms of what you can choose from. And if you put it into sport brake mode, it feels a fair bit more responsive, but even so, thankfully, the brake pedal feel is not fouled too much by the fact that it does have regen. In some instances, in these sorts of vehicles, you can find that the brake pedal feels quite strange underneath your foot, but this one in sport mode is quite grabby, in normal mode is actually quite progressive, but it still doesn't feel quite as normal as the existing Palisade with petrol or diesel did. And of course, there are drive modes as well to play with, so I've just put it into sport. Let's see what happens. My steering's gotten a lot heavier feeling. That might be something that you can also tailor if you like that in the individual setting. But yeah, the steering feels very different, and also it does have a fairly focused experience. When you do put it into sport mode, you are going to get a different kind of drive experience, especially when it comes to the acceleration, because the power down is really quite impressive. It's not lightning fast, it is a big truck, but it is still also pretty good when it comes to the sporty driving stuff, if that matters. And it does well pretty much with everything as far as I can tell from the drive experience. But like I said, this is a closed circuit. I haven't really been able to experience it when it comes to out of these confines and living with it in terms of the speed sign warning stuff that I usually whinge about. But it does have a mute button, so you can just press and hold the volume scroller on the steering wheel. That will turn off some of the speed sign stuff, which is good. But yeah, as you can probably hear, engine quite vocal at times, but it is a perky engine and it does have plenty of grunt, there's no doubt about that. So don't go thinking that because you're getting a hybrid powertrain, which maybe doesn't sound as appealing as a V6 petrol or a, you know, pretty oomphy turbo diesel, that you're getting a worse experience, because in my opinion, this feels pretty bloody good and up to the task when it comes to the price that's going to be asked as well. But let's talk about efficiency, because there's stuff to consider there, obviously. All right, so the claimed fuel consumption figure is 6.8 litres per 100k. So that's what you should be able to achieve across a mix of different driving situations. Now, this hasn't been necessarily representative of what is a real driving situation, but I will show you what I've seen on your screen right now, and I think that is pretty promising for what this could be like as a day-to-day conveyance for family buyers. Now, also, I'm going to put up here some information when it comes to fuel tank capacity and the fuel requirement. So yeah, what do you think about that? I think it's pretty efficient, maybe not as mind-blowingly efficient as you might be hoping for when it comes to a new generation hybrid powertrain, but it's also got plenty of power and, well, it seems up to the task, as I said. The Hyundai Palisade hasn't been tested by ANCAP just yet, but the brand is expecting a 5-star rating for this big family-friendly SUV, as you would probably expect. But it does mean that you're going to get some tech that might annoy you potentially, things like a driver monitoring camera, a speed sign recognition system, and a few other bing bong potentials. So that might keep you mindful if you are considering this car. Make sure you go for a test drive, a thorough one with lots of speed signs, and see if you can live with it. But there is also that mute button to quieten things down if you want to. Now, I also think that the standard package when it comes to the safety tech is very impressive. You've got autonomous emergency braking, there's adaptive cruise control with lane keeping assist so it can stop, start and steer for you. There's also things like blind spot monitoring, a blind spot view monitor with a camera system that can see what you can't see, plus a surround view camera system too, so plenty of great features when it comes to the technology. And you've got dual front, there's front side, there's a front center airbag, there's a driver's knee airbag, and there's curtain coverage for all 3 rows of seats according to Hyundai. So safety stuff, yeah, tick in the box, no doubt. Hyundai Australia offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and the brand also now has a conditional 7-year warranty. So if you service your vehicle within the Hyundai network on time, you can get up to 7 years of warranty. That is still a little bit behind the times compared to, say, Kia or something like that, which is unconditional, but at least it's now available. And the brand also has a very strong presence when it comes to the servicing stuff. So there is potential for lifetime cap price servicing for your Palisade. Roadside assist will top up each time you go back to Hyundai for your servicing, so that's great to see. And the brand also now has its own finance company, so it can offer you guaranteed future value on a vehicle if you are worried about spending this kind of bucks on this kind of truck. Look, is it too expensive? I'd love to know what you think for a Hyundai 3-row SUV. It is pushing the price up there, but it is also a compelling and very impressive thing in a lot of different ways. There's lots of great interior tech and space and usability. And I have to say, this powertrain is a big step forward from the old V6 and diesel offerings of yesteryear. So what do you think about it? Is it worth the cash? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please have your say in the comments, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe and help me grow my channel. It does help a lot. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you when I see you.